Old school epic mega games Jewel of the Jungle gets released on GOG. Blizzard announces a few new games at BlizzCon, and the SCUM devs explore the age-old question, how much does a big penis cost? Words I never thought I'd say. That plus a look at the game radar, the latest patches, and what I've recently played coming up on your dot plan for November the 4th, 2018. First up on our list, PlayStation Classic. It's been announced that all of the games that were on the platform, up to this point we've only known about 5 of the games that were coming up on the new mini PlayStation 1 majigger. Now we know the whole list of games, and it's somewhat okay. Let's go through the list and we'll talk about it a little bit. So coming on December the 3rd with the PlayStation Classic, you'll get Battle Arena Toshinden, Cool. Where am I getting that from? Cool Borders 2, Destruction Derby, Final Fantasy VII, Grand Theft Auto, Intelligent Cube, Jumping Flash, Metal Gear Solid, which is what you're seeing on your screen now, Mr. Driller, which I've never heard of, Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, which honestly at this point, if you would tell me that game was available on a toaster, I'd have to believe you, because I feel like that game's been ported everywhere. Rayman, Resident Evil Director's Cut, Revelations Persona, which is apparently the first Persona game. I've never... Persona 5, I think, is the latest one that's been out, and I know there's a lot of hype around that game. A lot of people really enjoy it. I've never played any of those games, so it'll be interesting to get a peek at what started it all, I guess. Ridge Racer Type 4, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. I've never heard of this one before either, but I've seen a couple people talk about it online saying that it was actually a really good game, so I'll have to go with the flow on that one. I have no idea. Siphon Filter, again another one I've never heard of. Tekken 3, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, the original Rainbow Six. Twisted Metal, which is another really good game, racing game. Wild and finally Wild Arms, which I've also heard some good things about. So there's a couple of things on this list that are very good, and there's a couple of things on this list that are meh, I guess. I don't know. There's been a lot of people who have analyzed this list and been like, well, why didn't they include like some of the real classics that people were really looking forward to? Much like, you know, Nintendo did with the NES and NES Classic and the SNES Classic. The only thing I can come up with is they had problems securing the licenses for some of those games, I guess, that people would have really enjoyed. That's not to say they didn't get a bunch of decent ones on here. Final Fantasy VII was a smash hit. Metal Gear Solid is pretty good for the, you know, nostalgia purposes. Oddworld, I've never really gotten into the Oddworld series. There are people who love that game and that whole series. I've never been able to really get into it. I don't know, the graphics are just kind of weird. The animation and stuff is just shows up weird to me for some reason. Resident Evil, the director's cut of that, I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy. Ridge Racer is a pretty good game. Twisted Metal, obviously a very good game. Destruction Derby is also a decent one. And the original Grand Theft Auto is okay. I don't think Grand Theft Auto 1 has aged all that well. GTA 2 might have aged a little bit better, but again, they're the old school top-down games. Given GTA 5's popularity, I don't know that anyone who's played the recent GTA games like 3, 4, and 5 would ever really want to go back to the original 2D top-downs, because they are a world of difference. But you know, for nostalgia purposes, I guess they're good that they've included those as well. And the rest on here, I'm not sure about. I'm sure there are a lot of people who will love to play the first Persona game. Those who love the you know, Persona games that have come out since then. I've never had an inkling to play any of those. I don't, they're a little bit too anime for me, but I don't know exactly. I might actually enjoy them. I have no idea. I've never really dug into them. They don't seem like the genre that I would enjoy. I mean, I guess they're JRPGs, but I don't know. I haven't looked enough at them to really tell exactly what I'm looking at there as far as those are concerned. But in any case, that has all been announced, so now we all know what is there, and going to be coming on December the 3rd. Next up on our list, Jewel of the Jungle has just been released for free out on GOG. Again, this is Epic coming through with something here. This is the old Epic Mega Games days. Jewel of the Jungle was one of the more popular shareware games. You used to get the first episode for free, which is what you're seeing on your screen, and then the next two you'd have to buy via the old shareware stuff. And this is a game that I actually played back in the day because it was included on my programming disc when you're learning to. There was a teach yourself game programming in like 21 days or something like that, and that was a book that I used quite a lot of when I was first learning to program. I initially wanted to be a game developer, and then realized that the hours and the money just weren't there. The hours per money wasn't there. Not that being a regular software developer doesn't have a lot of hours involved with it, and it does. But the pay was always a lot better for regular software development. That might have changed recently, but I know back in the day it was there was a huge gap there between the two. So this brings back the nostalgic memories just from that perspective, and obviously it's been released on GOG. It's free. I don't know how long it's going to be free. It might be free forever, for all we know. But it's free right now. All 3 episodes of it, they're all running in DOSBox, as you might imagine, and running quite well at that. I haven't had any problems with it from what I was, other than my normal platforming problems I have with any platforming game. So there you have it. You can go pick that up on GOG, and you don't even have to put any money down for it if you do it now. Again, I don't know how long it'll be free for, if it's going to be free forever or what. But there you have it, friends. If you're of the old school mindset and you want to see some old school DOS games, and you've been looking for a new one to play, you might want to give it a try. It's very ancient compared to what we're used to, and maybe a little bit janky here and there with control wise if you're not used to using Shift and Alt to do your bidding. But otherwise it's pretty darn good, I'd say. So anyways, onwards we go.
What's the matter with this thing? What's all that churning and bubbling? You call that a radar screen?
No, sir. We call it Mr. Coffee. Care for some?
Yes! I always have coffee when I watch radar. You know that.
Of course I do, sir.
Everybody knows that.
Of course we do, sir!
Now that I have my coffee, I'm ready to watch radar. Where is it?
Right here, sir.
All right, first up on the radar, friends, is a BlizzCon. We've gotten a few announcements from it, and one of those was Diablo Immortal, which is a Diablo game set on a mobile device. It has not been received quite well from the community, as you might imagine. There are a lot of hardcore Diablo fans who were looking for another Diablo on the PC. Now, Blizzard has been teasing a bunch of Diablo stuff recently, and they're still saying that there's other Diablo things in the works, but this was the only thing that they actually announced at BlizzCon. And lots of people were disappointed, and rightfully so. Any mobile game, it's an ARPG that they're going to do on mobile, which means it's going to be very, very hampered in its control schemes, as most are. And also, it's really going to probably be bogged down with a lot of microtransactions and stuff. This might be the whole what was that, the store, not the store, what did they call it in Diablo 3? It was like a player run pawn shop or whatever the hell it was. I forget the name of it, but it was like an item shop where you sold weapons to other players and for in-game currency and stuff like that they ended up having to shut down because it was being abused too much. This just seems like it's more of they're trying to grab the Asian market, particularly China. There are lots of younger gamers who will play this stuff on their mobile. There's a lot of younger gamers that play, Fortnite on mobile. I, for one, don't see the appeal myself. I feel like there's a certain type of mobile game that works on mobile, and there's a certain type that really doesn't, and anything that really requires some sort of dexterity and otherwise, having, movements and anything that would feel very comfortable on a controller is probably not going to feel comfortable on a phone screen. And in order to make it work on a phone screen, they're probably gonna do some interesting stuff. I've seen some mobile games that are like auto attack sort of games or auto movement sort of games, just to kind of make up for the limitations of it. And I don't know if Diablo became one of those. I could see that being quite a bit sacrilege. There's been a bunch of articles about it. Blizzard was. There's a rumor that the heads at Blizzard knew that they were going to get some backlash on it, but they didn't realize how much they were going to get. So who knows what's going to happen here. I actually, just out of morbid curiosity, pre-registered for it to see if I can take a look at it on my emulator. I'll most likely do it on a Android emulator and not on an actual phone, because that just seems crazy to me to not have a mouse-driven thing. So we'll see if I end up getting in on it. Obviously, it's probably going to be some sort of beta that they're not going to. I have no idea if there's like an NDA or anything on it yet, so I won't know that unless I actually get into it. So we'll see. Maybe I'll have more to say about that later. I'm just more morbidly curious about what this is going to be than anything else. It sounds like they've brought in a partner to do the actual coding that does a lot of mobile games. There's been talk that this is going to be just a reskin of one of those other games. There are screenshots and stuff of it that's, it looks like there's attack buttons on the bottom right hand corner kind of thing. Don't know yet. Don't know what shape it's going to take, other than the community's not happy, and rightfully so, about that. So that is what we know thus far about Diablo Immortal. There is it's apparently going to also take place between Diablo 2 and 3. So it's new stories for characters you already know in Diablo 2, and NetEase is the partner that's going to be working on it. So don't know anything else. 6 character classes: Necromancer, Wizard, Demon Hunter, Barbarian, Monk, and Crusader. And somehow it's going to be massively multiplayer. Can't give you much more than that. But on a little bit nicer news, or a little bit more welcome news, if you will, they also announced Warcraft 3 Reforged, which has got a lot of people very, very excited. It's going to be a complete remaster of Warcraft 3. brand new graphics, brand new resolutions, new models, remodeled characters, upgraded UI, and world editor that's been upgraded, 4K resolution, and lots of good stuff there. And this is got a lot of people excited because Warcraft 3 was apparently the pinnacle of the Warcraft series for a lot of people. It also spawned, World of Warcraft, which is still the biggest granddaddy of them all as far as MMOs are concerned. It spawned a whole genre of, namely the MOBAs, and if I'm not mistaken, some of the what was it? Not League of Legends. Is it League of Legends, or is it one of the, what's the other one? The other big one? I forget. Dota. I think it was Dota, right? That was actually a expansion that was created for Warcraft 3 originally. Like it was like a mod for Warcraft 3, and then that became its own franchise, its own big deal, and whatnot. So this, again, is kind of one of those integral points in gaming history. So it's nice to see it's getting some love and attention. I have never, I have a love-hate relationship with RTS games. Or really any strategy games for that matter. I have a lot of problems. I used to play a lot of them. My brother was really into them too. He liked, Age of Empires, and what was that other one? There was another sort of the name of it escapes me. It's a very popular one, and it just escapes me at the moment. So I did play a little bit here and there, but I've always struggled with them. I played the original StarCraft, and I liked it to a point, but then I got tired of always starting back at zero every time you go to the next level. And I know that's sort of integral to a lot of these games. You start back at zero again. You gotta go through all. I just got tired of going through the same motions over and over and over again. And which is why I liked the homeworld stuff, because you never started back at zero again. You always started with whatever you ended the last mission with. But yeah, I might take a look at it. I might take a look at Warcraft 3 Reforged just to see what it's all about. I like I said, never played any Warcraft games, so I'll probably not understand the lore going on, but I might be able to at least enjoy the strategy elements if I can wrap my brain around them, because I'm pretty dumb when it comes to strategy games in general, usually because I don't take the time necessary to really learn how things synergize together, and if it requires a lot of synergies, then I'll end up failing miserably at it, more than likely. But anyway, that was the better news, the more welcome news, I'd say, that came out of BlizzCon so far that I've seen. So if you're a big Warcraft fan, then you got something to look forward to. I don't know what the date is for it. It just says, as far as I know, just next year it's coming out. I don't know exactly when, or if they've pinned down exactly when that's coming out next year, but something on your radar to keep an eye on, as always. And another thing for your radar, if I can pull it up here, Just Cause 4. Just Cause 4 is just got its set of system requirements, and its season pass was revealed, and the release date is going to be December the 4th. The footage you're seeing on screen, by the way, is Just Cause 2. I did play Just Cause 3. I didn't record any of it, and I went to reinstall it to record it, and I didn't have enough hard drive space, so I did Just Cause 2 instead. So just in case you're confused there. And it's, as far as we know, there's going to be 3 separate DLC releases starting in 2019. The first, called Daredevils, puts Rico against some underground gangs, with some death races and stuff. That ought to be interesting. And Demons is the next one after that, where Rico will actually fight an ancient demon. Again, that sounds ridiculous. And finally, the third one, which is called Danger, Rico will have to go up against some highly trained operatives who really want to eliminate him. So all that sounds fantastic. The Just Cause games they're a strange and interesting beast. It's interesting that I've played all of them and actually completed all of them. I did complete Just Cause 3 on streams earlier this year. Just Cause 2 I played on my own well before YouTube was a thing, or before I was on YouTube, and finished that. And then Just Cause 1 again was another one that I finished on my own well before I did any kind of YouTube stuff. I'm half tempted to go back and play them again, because they're just like, they're good. I want to turn my brain off and just blow crap up games. And for some reason, and I noticed this as I was playing just this footage that you're seeing now of Just Cause 2. Just Cause 2, the physics in it are so much more fun than they were in Just Cause 3. I don't know why. Like, in Just Cause 3, I liked the wingsuit. The wingsuit, at first I wasn't sure about it, and it really grew on me later on. I really liked it. That was the first time they ever had the wingsuit, and it was really nice. But the physics were not, what's the word I'm looking for? They were not funky enough. In this game, the physics are like hilarious. You know, where you walk up to a soldier and you shoot him in the face and he just ragdolls to the high heavens. And it's just, there's just moments of like, this is just freaking hilarious how the physics are working in the game. And they kind of, in Just Cause 3, they kind of fixed them to the point where they weren't quite so dramatically interesting or bad. And so it kind of made the game a little bit more boring, honestly, which is a weird thing to say, because it was kind of fun to see the sort of over the top stuff here. I mean, there were still some over the top things you could do, you know, attaching barrels, attaching kerosene things to a car, and then with your you know, lasso or whatever, I forget what they call it, and you know, shooting the barrel and have it fly off in the screen and off into the sky and carry the car with it and all that stuff. You can still do that in 3, but it was a little bit more, I guess, kind of slightly more realistic in the physics. And I kind of like 2, where the physics are just sort of bonkers. Like they're somewhat make sense, but they're still sort of kind of bonkers. And that, for some reason, it made it a lot more, I don't know, a lot more interesting than it probably had any right to be. The weird thing about the Just Cause games is that they are, and what I find weird about them is why they actually capture my attention. Like, there's a lot of grinding in these games. Like, I mean, there's a lot of cities to go to. They've always had relatively big maps, and there's just a ton of like, okay, now I gotta go here and I gotta repeat what I did before and destroy all the stuff and do this. But yet, for some reason, it never really got that old for me. I just kind of still enjoy it. And, you know, I enjoy the stories in them too, even though they're just there as set pieces to give you more stuff to destroy. But anyway, I might at some point, I might be tempted at some point to just do a stream where I go back to the old Just Cause games like this and just complete them again, only this time with some video evidence that I've completed them. And of course, I am pumped up for Just Cause 4. I've already, I believe I've already pre-ordered it. If I don't remember. in any case, I will be buying it day one. It's just I might be. I'm hoping it shows up on the Humble store, because then I can get like the extra 10% off because I'm a Humble monthly subscriber. If that happens, that'll be great, because then I'll be able to get the season pass thing. Because it sounds like to me, from what I've read, the season pass, there's going to be a gold edition of the game that includes a season pass, and it's going to be $30 more than the regular edition. And so you and I all know what that means. That means probably $90. You know, because it's usually $60 for the regular, and then, you know, probably 80 or 90 for the gold edition, which has the season pass. So if I can find that, I'm really hoping it shows up on Humble Bundle, because that $9 off will be well needed if I'm going to try to go for the gold super duper season pass edition thing, because it really is kind of worth it. I didn't get the season pass for Just Cause 3, and honestly, the extra DLC that they had wasn't really that appealing to me anyway, so I didn't feel like I missed anything. For this one, though, it sounds like it's going to be just bonkers, so I kind of want to get the full season pass for that. So we'll see. We'll play all that by ear, but that is all coming out December the 4th. So if your wallet hasn't started crying yet, it will be very shortly. Anyway, moving right along.
Radio call for you, Captain. Some guy named Graham and Ham.
Put it on the overhead.
Just a minute, sir. Go ahead, sir.
All right, first up on the updates and patches this week, we've got Shroud of the Avatar Forsaken Virtues is now free to play. This was I believe, a crowd-funded Kickstarter game. It is by Richard Garriott, who did the original Ultima stuff, and it is an MMO and never really took off. From whatever we can gather, they say that there's several thousand players who use it, and it's not really not as many players on Steam as there are just for the regular standalone client. But I haven't heard much of it. If it's made any waves, it hasn't really made any good waves. There's been a lot of it's on Steam. It's voted down as mostly negative, as not being really worth your time. Since it's free to play now on Steam, I downloaded it to record some of this footage, and it's interesting, I guess. There's this weird dialogue thing where it's the old school, like, one-word dialogue things, but you can also type it in instead of clicking on it, which seems like a weird gimmick that nobody ever asked for, but yet it's there. The graphics are, well, they seem more dated than even these remind me a little bit of Oblivion, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion graphic level, which is fine. I mean, graphics aren't all the be all and do all of everything, but it just does seem like they kind of took an old school engine and just kind of bolted this on there. But I guess some of that is just because they wanted to have low system requirements, which is, for an MMO, you do want as many people as possible to be able to enjoy it. So I can kind of see where they're going there. But at the same time, I haven't played enough of it to really understand if I would enjoy it. I never played any of the Ultima games, so I'm not tuned into what the lore actually is for it. So I have no thoughts going into this as to whether or not this is an interesting enough game to play or not. It is interesting that they've gone from a paid model to free to play. Will free-to-play bring more people in? I have no idea. Like I said, I've barely touched it. I've looked around at some of the community to see what the community's saying, and they're about as ambivalent about it as you could be. They're just like, yeah, whatever. And I haven't seen any real movement as far as players are concerned on there. But of course, I don't have the numbers beyond just what I can see on SteamDB. So, who knows? But I mean, it had the free-to-play update brings a dedicated tutorial section, which is what you're kind of seeing here. Although I find this woman making weird hand gestures rather funny. But it's there's like this little tutorial there to try to get you into the game, which I certainly appreciate, but I haven't quite gone beyond that. And they've overhauled the new user experience. So, but it's a gated tutorial, so you can't go beyond. You can't go past anything until you've done exactly what they've told you to do as far as the skills and whatnot. So might be a little bit heavy-handed depending on how long this tutorial is. I couldn't quite figure it out. There is a book that I pick up here that has a bunch of stuff in it, and it had several chapters, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to read this right now. So my guess is the tutorial might be quite long. I'm not sure. It's you can go to shroudoftheavatar.com to download it standalone, or you can just download it from Steam for free. Not quite sure what's going on with it. It did gather like $2 million on Kickstarter in 2013 and got more than $12 million altogether, I guess, in funding from various sources. So it certainly looks like a lot of effort's been put in here. Is the book text like Comic Sans? I can't, like, I was reading and I'm like, man, this text in this book is like, I don't know. It's almost Comic Sans font almost. And then like this watcher I talked to, it gives me a weird like access blocked transmitting thing that doesn't look like it was translated to actual English. I'm not sure what to make of it. I'm not sure how put together the game is. What I did find weird is that this is an MMO, but it allows me to play in single player, which is what you're actually seeing here in the footage. So maybe I would play it single player because I have no real desire to be multiplayer, but I have no idea what that actually entails. Like, does that mean I could play the whole story as single player, or does it come to a point where I then have to be in the multiplayer? There's apparently, like, from what I've read, like player housing and stuff. Does that still work, or are there certain things that are just disabled? I have no idea. It was just weird. I was expecting to just see like, oh, you gotta log in and create an account for your multiplayer, and instead it said, oh, here's a single player thing. I was like, okay, I'll just do a single player since I'm just capturing a little bit of footage. But I don't know. It's an enigma wrapped in a very weird shell. is all I can say there. So maybe others out there will enjoy and maybe take a look at it now that they can do so without opening their wallets up for it. So there we go on that. Our next update is for Signs of Life, a game that I haven't played in a long time and I really need to get back to. It's a 2D crafting sandbox game, very similar to like Starbound and games like that of that magnitude, but it had interesting differences, scanning and whatnot. And I played it. I did a let's play of it quite a while ago, and you're seeing some footage of that here. But it was still in early alpha, and I still had a lot still had a lot to go, and I played as much of it as I could, and then just kind of put it down and said I'll come back to this later. But it's now getting a tutorial, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's getting close to being 1.0 as well. I think the tutorial and a few other things they said are going to be the last few things needed to kind of push it over the top and make it a full-fledged, good on you, you know, ready to be released game, hopefully. So that'll be cool. I'll be keeping my eye on that to see what's going on there. But it's an interesting game. Like I said, it's like Starbound. It's like Terraria. I guess you would call it a Terraria alike. But it's closer to Starbound than that. There's more, like, there's mining and there's a lot of exploration. It doesn't really, it's not a you're going to go to multiple planets kind of thing, as far as I remember. It's more of a you're dropped onto this single planet, and it's closer to Terraria, where you're dropped on a single planet and there's a lot to explore. There's outposts, there's spoiler alert, used to be anyway, a giant mechanized chicken that would try to wreck your face, and that was an interesting thing that I ran into many ages ago. There's a lot of crafting and what you would expect there, so it's an interesting game. And the tutorial actually is when you're on your ship, and you find some life out on an asteroid, and the tutorial then teleports you out there to give you the basics of how to survive and all that stuff. And then eventually the main game is when your ship gets blowed up and you come crashing down in an escape pod. So it's also, I guess, in that regard, kind of similar to like Empyrean. But again, not with spaceships and all that stuff. You just basically stay planet side, from what I've seen anyway. You're not jumping from planet to planet or anything like that. So cool things all along there. I hope I want to jump back into that at some point and kind of give it another run through, because it's been a long time. It's been in development for quite a long time, and it's always been in a very good state. Like it's not been one of those early accesses that, you know, totally completely buggy and unusable. It's always been in a very usable, very stable state from what I've seen. So you know, it's a shame I didn't keep up with it and keep on doing it, but you know, there's a lot of sandbox games have come out, and it's hard to keep up to date with everything that's happening. So on my list to come back to at some point here. Next up, speaking of things on my list here, if I can pull this up here, there we go, is SCUM. SCUM is getting an update. It's called the Wild Hunter update, and as I mentioned at the start of this, it involves some penile, what would I call it? Penile questions of penile importance. I guess is the best way to put it. There's a lot of stuff in this update. You're getting some bows and arrows, some primal crafting, some musical instruments, so you can go play the banjo if you want to. If you're a server, if you're renting out a server and you're a server owner, you get to actually take control of the drones that fly around in the game. So you can actually see the cameras and fly around and look at the players and look at other areas. They're working on expanding that to be able to do it for all players, but or most players anyway. But right now it's limited to just those who have rented a server and are the owner or have ownership permissions on that. Mostly because you can see everything and you can kind of interact with everything. And of course, one of the things it's added is nudity. So you can blot out the nudity. By default, it's actually turned on where it will just do sort of like a Sims 4, like, you know, moire pattern over your junk, so you can't see it. But then you can turn that off, and you can adjust the size of your manhood. It's up to 8 inches, so it's still at least somewhat realistic. And you're not gonna have any mandingos around if you know what I'm talking about. But it's interestingly enough, they've tied it into the same point system that dictates your other attributes, like your stamina and your strength and whatnot. So every point you put into your manhood takes away a point that you could use on those other stats. And similarly, every point you remove from your pants can be placed back into those stats. So it brings up the age-old question: how much are you willing to pay to have the largest bait and tackle around? Also, if you are if you have the supporter pack, if you've bought the supporter pack for SCUM, you get an extra 2 inches to play with. I'm trying not to say scandalous things here, but yes, you have an extra 2 inches that you can use as part of your modifications for your body. Frankly, this whole thing is just rather hilarious, and I hope that everyone else finds it equally as hilarious as I do. But it's an interesting, as far as developers coming up with just strange and interesting concepts. This one I'm kind of like, you know what? They might actually be trying to answer some sort of philosophical question here, and I actually like how they've added that into the game in such a way that it actually is built into the whole stat system and all that stuff. So all they really need to do now is give us a crafting recipe for Viagra, and they've just got they've just 100%ed that whole realm. Or at least you get some in-game emails from for enhancement drugs or whatever. So and then they've just completely meted the whole thing at that point. So like I said, there's a lot of good updates as part of the Wild Hunter update, but obviously the funniest of them will be what you do with the old Down Under Junior. So the old bald bishop, as it were. I'm gonna stop that topic right now before I go way too overboard with it. But anyway, never mind. There's just too many things running through my brain right now. In any case, there will be a link down in the description where you can read about all of the updates that have come with the Wild Hunter update in SCUM, which is live right now. As I was recording this footage, I was able to experience the new stuff. Let's just say it was an experience, we'll say. In any case, next up on our list is Elite Dangerous has gotten its Chapter 4 update, or is getting its Chapter 4 update. I'm not sure if it's happened yet or not. I believe it has happened. But as part of that, they have introduced squadrons and scenario missions. So a squadron is what you kind of would expect it to be. It's basically a party, basically a team. You can team up with other players. It costs 10 million credits to create a squadron, and whoever creates the squadron automatically becomes a leader. You can set your squadron's name, the ID tag, and its affiliation among superpowers and factions, and set tags on it to help prospective players find it. It's also, you can have up to 500 members in the squadron, and then you can give the members all different kinds of permissions and ranks. Ranks that give them certain privileges to stuff. Like I said, just like a guild or like a party would be in any other game. and it's also brought in scenario missions. It's been sort of compared to like Guild Wars 2 and how it does these sort of dynamic active missions where as you're just flying around, a mission will just crop up and you can go in and join it, and more than likely you'll find other people who are there also running the mission, which sounds rather good. Honestly, anything at this point that makes it an interesting experience would be nice. I know there's a lot of people out there who play Elite quite frequently. I gave it a shot many moons ago, and I haven't been back to it since because it was just really, really boring. It's less Elite Dangerous and more snore frequently. At least it was. Now, since I looked at it, there's been a lot of changes. There's been planetary, you got buggies and stuff now. This new update apparently adds more exploration to the game, like more rewards for exploration. I had a problem where I first jumped into it and I got like some missions, and then I went to the system that apparently was where I needed to, like it was a bounty or something like that, and I went to the system where the bounty was supposedly located and I couldn't find it. And I just kind of got a little bit frustrated with the game. I was like, I get that a lot of people really enjoy it, and I could see myself enjoying it a lot. It's just, it needed, at the time anyway, it really needed an overhaul to just like throw me a bone from time to time. Like, hey, I get that maybe it's more realistic that you don't know where the bounty is and you need to go search for it, but at least let me know if I'm in the right ballpark. You know what I mean? Like, give me some kind of feedback that's like, yeah, you're kind of getting there. Just keep on going. And that was kind of my experience with it. Was just, there was like a lot of, yeah, you can go do things, and then that was it. It was not like, hey, here's a suggestion for what to do, or hey, how about something other than just looking at the stars flying by. I mean, for Christ's sake, people have made mods so that while they're playing it in VR, with a VR headset on, they can watch a movie. They have like a VLC plug-in where you could watch a movie in your in-game, cockpit while you've got your VR headset on, because just to pass the freaking time. I mean, it's like stuff like that. I'm like, I kind of see where the appeal would be. But at the same time, I'm like, man, there's a whole lot of nothing to do. A whole lot of just waiting in between, small bits of excitement. So I'm hoping that they're eventually getting to a point where it might be a little bit more interesting for someone like me who just wants to run some quests and run some missions and get some money. And I don't want to just sit there mining or, exploration's cool and all, but it's a big time sink that I just, I get like an hour or two to play, and if I can't make any kind of progress in an hour, then you're going to lose me very quickly. And that's exactly what happened with Elite, at least initially. But I'm keeping an open mind and hoping that, jumping back into it at some point here is a good thing, that this whole update is actually bringing a game into what is just a simulation at this point. So cool beans all along there. And next on our list is Streets of Rogue. They have gotten an Alpha 63 update where they've added a playable firefighter to the game. This one is going to be probably their last update until the 1.0. The game will be hitting 1.0 soon. They're working on getting it in shape for console certification. They still have a bunch of bugs and balance issues to do. Okay, this won't be the last update, but it will be one of the last updates until they get to 1.0, because the next update they're going to be finalizing all their text and all their externalized text for various languages and stuff. Then yeah, they're going to be getting it in shape and getting it ready to go. Don't know when the 1.0 is going to be for the game, but they are getting very close to it, and the footage you're seeing here is back from Alpha 21B, and they're up to like 63 now. So it'll be interesting to jump back into it and see how things are going. There's been some balance changes here and there. Again, you can now play as a firefighter, which is an interesting take on it. So hopefully it'll be time very shortly to jump back into it and see how it's going. So if you like your top-down roguelikes that don't take themselves too seriously and throw a lot of interesting and fun things at you, and there's all kinds of classes you can play, you might enjoy this. You might enjoy it quite a bit. So there's a lot of destructible buildings. There's a lot of different ways of doing things, and it's quite a lot of fun from what I've seen and what I've played, and I quite enjoyed it. So I think a lot of other people will enjoy it as well as you look at it. So that was Streets of Rogue. The next one on our list is Crashlands, and this is a game I played all the way through to the end many moons ago. It's still out there. It's been released for quite some time, but it is now all the versions of the game are now getting a couch co-op, so you can do local co-op now. Your co-op partner will play as Juicebox, which is a little guy floating around on the screen there behind me, as you can kind of see as I walk around my base here. But it's your second player will get to play as Juicebox. You have 4 different abilities you can do as Juicebox, and stuff to help out the main player as you're doing things and collecting stuff and whatnot in the game. It's a 2D top-down sandbox game. It's very in many ways similar to like Don't Starve, but it's not a hardcore simulation in any regards to that. It's you're not going to starve in the game, that kind of thing. It's a very lighthearted building game where you can kind of build some houses, and you can go around and exploring, and it's about running quests mostly. It's mostly quest based. You're going around trying to do all these quests, and the idea is that you are a intergalactic shipping dude, an intergalactic trucker basically, and your cargo is you're attacked, your cargo is stolen, and you crash onto this planet called Nope. And there's 3 different areas of the game of the planet that you explore, and each area then unlocks more crafting recipes, and there's a lot of, if you want to try to 100% it like I did, there's a lot of grinding to do in order to do that. Probably a little too much grinding at times. I did find that the last chapter of the game, the last act, the 3rd area that you go into, was really annoying from you need to collect 700 bare asses kind of thing to continue. But beyond that, I mean, I persevered and got through it because I really enjoyed it still, as a game overall. So it's just one of those things where if you really like building games like this or sandbox games like this, you'll probably enjoy this game. Probably enjoy it a lot. And they're also preparing, the reason this also is in news is because they are preparing to port it to the Switch. It'll be coming out on the Nintendo Switch on November the 8th, which is just this next week coming up. So if you are looking for something like this on the Switch, I think, to me, this seems like a game that would be really good on the Switch, honestly. I mean, you can get it on pretty much every other platform right now, but it does seem like it would lend itself very well to a portable system like a Switch. And I believe you can get it on mobile devices too, if I'm not mistaken. But it definitely feels like the type of game that you would really, really very enjoyable on the Switch. So that is something to keep an eye out for. If you've never seen this game before, it is a lot of fun. I did like I said, a whole Let's Play on it like 3 years ago, something like that. It was like 2 years ago. I still every once in a while get a comment on it. It's like, hey, how did you find this thing and how did you find that thing? Because I did have to do a lot of walking around throughout the game, a lot of just exploration to try to find different areas, and they eventually updated the game quite a bit to where the map was actually very useful eventually and all that stuff. So the videos that you'll see of me being kind of frustrated, a lot of those frustrations have been mitigated, I think, with later updates. So it's a game that I would love to revisit at some point. I know there's been new content put on it that's for free and all that stuff. It's just the last act of the game really gave a bad taste in my mouth with how difficult it was to find things, and how much you had to find of certain things, and the drop rates being what they were. So it might be something that's been fixed since then, but again, you'll enjoy at least the first 2/3 of the game very, very much so. Just cool stuff all along there. Another thing to just keep an eye out for if you're looking in the mood for another, Terraria-like or Don't Starve-alike game without all the hardcore, survival stuff. You don't have to worry about food or being cold or shelter and all that stuff. It's just a nice, fun game to just spend some time in. So, and very colorful too. It's very, very, very nice art style and graphics. It's very, very calming in that regard. So, there you go on that, friends.
He just kept talking in one long, incredibly unbroken sentence, moving from topic to topic so that no one had a chance to interrupt. It was really quite hypnotic.
All right, first up on the games that I've played this week is a Pocket Rogues. It is what it sounds like on the tin. It's a roguelike top-down 2D game. Like action-y RPG roguelike. I believe actually I think I figured out after I recorded this that there is actually a mobile version of the game, which kind of explains why it's sort of like a little bit weird in terms of the controls. It works really well with the mouse and keyboard, but it does, like, there is like a little bit of a delay between slicing and when you click the mouse and it actually doing an attack and whatnot. And occasionally it does suffer from, not really, you run into a spike and not realize that you were going to run into a spike at the time. But you learn very quickly what you can touch and what you can't touch. And I got actually quite far in my my look at it too. I was doing quite well. There are some UI things that I feel like could be improved. Like, in order to get into the inventory, you have to actually click on the screen. If there's a key to do it, it's not an intuitive key to do it that it's mapped to. Like I said, really the biggest problem is that delay when you're between a click and when you're actually attacking it. It feels like it could almost be an action RPG, except it's really not. It's like it's closer to a turn-based one, where there's just enough delay in there that it's a little bit frustrating. But it's beyond that, quite competent. It's definitely something that I could see sitting down, and if you're just kind of bored for and you need something to kill like an hour or 20 minutes or whatever, this would do it. This would do it quite well. There's a different there's a map that you unlock as you're going, as you go down the levels of each area. It unlocks a different area. So there's catacombs, which is what I'm in right now, and then you go a little bit deeper, and there's mines and stuff to go through, and and then you can come back to it later. And then as you get through a particular area, as you get through all the levels and you beat the boss monster at the end of each one, you unlock the endless mode where you'll just stay in that same place and just keep going from floor to floor to floor as long as you can. And it's fun. There's different classes. You level up as you go. There's experience points. You carry your experience points over from one run to the next, and then you also carry over your gold that you've picked up as well as crystals, and you use the gold and the crystals to change what your starting gear is going to be for the next run and stuff like that. And it's very competent. It's not the most graphically impressive game out there, but it does well what it does, and it can be quite a lot of fun in, like I said, in small bursts. It can be quite a lot of fun to deal with. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. So that was Pocket Rogues, my friends. The next one on our list is Polyuniverse, and this is a strategy game, strategy city building game that is decent. It's kind of based around this whole concept of polygons, and everything you build is some kind of polygonal shape, and you are basically managing resources from a sort of overall level. It's almost like a logistical thing, but it's really not. You're just kind of managing your city. You're managing how many people you're bringing in. You're managing their jobs and what jobs they're taking on. Every so often you're attacked by aliens. They'll fly down and drop onto your planet, and your goal is eventually to build a ship and then go out to the stars and colonize more planets. And it's interesting. It's, like I said, it's kind of close to Pocket Rogues in that it feels like it's a game that you play for maybe 20 minutes to an hour, and then you kind of put it aside, and then you come back to it when you're just kind of bored and you want to play some more. It works in that regard quite well, and I enjoyed my time in it. There are, as you see from the green bouncing thing on the screen there's objectives to undertake. Build a fort, build farms, gather this much from the farms and all that stuff to just kind of keep you moving, keep you motivated, keep you understanding where you have to go next. And I appreciate that quite a lot. So it's nice. I think there were some UI things that I think could have been slightly improved. I feel like sometimes I was starving for information, and it was kind of a little bit difficult to get some information out. But other than that, it seemed to work quite well for what I needed, and I enjoyed my time with it, and I'll probably actually stream this game, I think, some more. I really do need to sit down and play some kind of strategy game at some point. And I feel like this is a good one that I can kind of just sit down and there's not a whole lot going on in it that I can't wrap my brain around what's happening, so it makes it a little bit easier to kind of just, it's a little bit more casual in its strategy, where I can kind of just sit back and just sort of like, okay, I could tweak this here and I could tweak that there, and kind of just roll with it. So cool things all around. The next thing on our list was The Pit of Doom. This is from the devs of Sword of the Stars, The Pit. This is sort of their follow-up to it, where instead of a 2D top-down thing, it's a 3D game. And it's still very, very early in development, as you probably saw from my videos where I could see through walls and stuff like that the walls didn't quite render. It's all procedurally generated. But what I really enjoy about it is that it's got like your RPG stats all the way through. So you can start out as different classes that give you different stats. There's like 3 different classes, I think, right now in the game. And then from that, as you play, you level up. So every time you unlock something successfully, your lock picking skill levels up. every time you kill something, you get experience points. Actually, every time you do anything, you get experience points, successfully anyway. And then you can level up, and then as you level up, you can allocate those experience points to various skills, and that improves your ability to like forage for things, or improves your the amount that food will last for you, and all that stuff. There is a food mechanic in the game, and that kind of thing. And there's melee damage, and then there's different damage modifiers for all your guns that you come up against, and all that stuff. So it's interesting. It's fun. It's there's not a whole lot there yet. And again, it's very buggy what is there. But it's certainly, I understand, I think, where they're going, and how and where they're going with it, and what's what direction they're heading with it. So it's a nice little time waster right now. Like I said, it's buggy at the moment, but it's still playable even in its current state. And as I was going down the multiple floors, I started encountering different and crazier monsters that I hadn't seen before. So some of the hitboxes on the monsters aren't registering quite well, but so I could see you kind of dying from a kind of BS death at times, but it was, and also the difficulty is not there either yet. It seems to be very easy right now. So that'll be, I'm sure, something that they'll tweak as it goes. But I don't have anything really bad or negative to say about it. I enjoyed playing it. It almost reminded me a little bit of what was that old DOS game? It was like wasn't Doom, but it was kind of set in this office complex that you would go through multiple levels of the office complex, and then eventually you hit the boss, and then the idea was you're going to take the boss out and all that stuff. It kind of reminds me of that. What was it? Blakestone, Aliens of Gold. For some reason, it reminds me of that game a little bit. I don't know if it's just the aesthetic or what it is, but it just kind of, I kind of just get vibes of that. I know it's a weird one to compare it to, because Blakestone was never really a particularly popular game, but first-person shooter, and it didn't have any of these like stats and whatnot. But it still, for some reason, I just get that vibe out of it. I don't know why, and I enjoyed that game growing up, so it's certainly a good comparison for me anyway. I don't know about anyone else. But that was the Pit of Doom that I took a look at. And then the next one on our list is My Colony. And this was another 2D top-down strategy game. Came out of nowhere. Apparently, it's not 1.0 yet, although it's not early access from what I could see on Steam, at least when I originally looked at it. But it still feels like it's not quite there yet. It needs a lot of polish. And there's certain mechanics to it that are slightly broken, but there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of interesting ideas there. There's like this whole sort of multiplayer thing that's kind of sort of multiplayer and kind of offline multiplayer almost, where you can you'll get randomly matched up with another player, and you have to take whatever faction they took, which is like there's 4 factions in the game, and basically that other player becomes your parent city, and you have to pay them, I think you have to pay them taxes and stuff, but they also can send you resources, and you're basically helping each other out. You're kind of sharing technologies and stuff like that, and a very interesting concept. And then eventually you can declare your own independence, and then you can then become the parent of another person in multiplayer. Very interesting little things that they've done there with that. I'm intrigued entirely, and again, it's a game where you have to kind of overlook the programmer art, but that's easy to do once you understand what's going on in the game. There's a couple problems I've had with it. It really needs a speed slider. It really needs a volume control, because otherwise it will destroy your hearing just mercilessly. And it also has a few mechanics that are a little bit suspect as to whether or not they're actually working the way they intended them to do. In many ways, like I said in my video, it feels less like a strategy game and more like a cookie clicker almost, or an idle game, because really when it comes down to it, it's all about keeping all those numbers moving upwards. And that's appealing from I like to see numbers going up way, but it's not necessarily appealing from a strategy perspective, because I can't really pin down that there's an actual strategy involved other than just make all those numbers go up. And it's once you realize you can make those numbers go up through nefarious means, shall we say, it just becomes more of a, well, I'll sit here and watch these numbers climb kind of thing. And I guess I better build another storage facility so the numbers can keep climbing again, kind of thing. So we'll see how this shapes up. It has a lot of interesting ideas. Whether or not it can capitalize on those interesting ideas and still figure out how to be a strategy game, it remains to be seen at this point. So we'll see how that fleshes out. I'll keep an eye on it myself and maybe revisit it perhaps in the future if it gets some updates and whatnot. And next on our list, this time for real, Deliver Us the Moon. You might have realized if you watched last week's episode, I had Deliver Us the Moon on the schedule there, and I actually edited it out of the episode because I had a technical problem where the footage I was playing actually still had the audio on it, and so you actually heard my voice twice, once when I was doing the Let's Play and once while I was actually doing this footage. So that's why that got cut out, and I fixed it for this week. Hopefully it looks like it's fixed for this week. So I had a few things. I had completed Deliver Us to the Moon last week, and this week the last episode went up, and it was a little bit disappointing. It ends on a cliffhanger, and that's that. And it's not really that much of a cliffhanger, just that it just kind of abruptly ends. I had a lot of feedback about it, especially in that last episode, where there was just things about the game that just bugged me. The layout of the levels was not very intuitive. Like the levels all looked the same, and it was very hard sometimes to know where to go next. It would have been useful if they just put an objective marker somewhere and said, hey, go here, dummy. Because a lot of time I spent so much time just kind of putting around in the same area, like especially this central hub here, like trying to figure out where to go next. What am I supposed to do next? And I'm just looking around like I have no idea where to go and what to do. And good level design is subtle enough that it kind of gives you a clue, like, hey, go this way, dummy. It kind of leads you in the right direction. This game doesn't really lead you in any directions. It just kind of drops you in areas and says, you'll figure it out. And you end up kind of scratching your head like, well, where am I supposed to go now? What am I supposed to do now? More often than not. But the other problem is this is a narrative-driven, basically walking simulator. And the narrative is not complete. Like, and I'm not talking just the story. I mean, the story does end abruptly, and it ends with a to be continued, and I assume they're still working on it. But the story itself is very shallow. Like, they introduce a lot of characters. Some of those characters are quite compelling. They have some interesting stories around them. Like, there's a guy that's has his got custody of his daughter and brought his daughter up onto the moon, and his daughter's still young and she's growing, but she's, you know, the doctors are like, hey, your daughter's not growing properly because of the microgravity, and you know, this is going to be a problem, and that kind of thing. And you know, there's compelling, you know, character stories there, but they're just very shallow. There's no payoff to any of that information. It's just kind of there. It's like you've walked through you've walked through a library, but there's no organization to anything that's there. There's just random books strewn about with no real thought as to how they interact with the world and what kind of narrative is being generated there. And there's this whole overarching narrative of, you know, these people abandoned their posts for some reason, but it's not, there's not enough meat on that bone to find that particular narrative compelling. It's just like, oh, okay, they abandoned their post. Great. But, you know, you would like to know what their motivations are, but you don't care enough about the players to actually care about their motivations. You know what I mean? It's not particularly compelling in what it's putting out there. And I do like that they took the time and effort to really integrate the puzzles and stuff with the game. And there are a couple that are, I mean, the puzzles are actually really easy, but when you first are in there, it's like, how do I do this? How do I get through this? And then when you come up with the solution, you're like, oh, I was so stupid that I didn't see that right away. But that's all integrated well. It's just, there's not, like I said, it's very shallow. It's a very shallow pool. There's not a whole lot of interesting story going on to really carry it. The narrative needs to carry this game, and it's not particularly interesting. There's no characters that you really care about. There's a lot of repeat of what's going on. Like, for instance, you follow these people who had, like, there was another team that went up to try to figure out what had gone on or what had gone wrong with the station and why it had gone silent. And you're kind of following these two people as they go around the different areas because they've left audio logs. But it's a lot of times they're just kind of saying the things that you already figured out, like, oh, we're now exploring this area, and oh, it's been turned, it's been tossed, and looks like there's been evidence of a fight here. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm seeing the same thing that you're seeing, and it's not really, you're not really giving me any interesting or different information. You know, the narrative that I'm hearing is not any different than what I'm seeing, or it's not contributing to what I'm seeing. Like, if I see a bunch of bunks tossed, and then they come in, and then I listen to the narrative, and they say, oh, everything's, you know, neat and tidy, and then you hear a struggle, well, then you know, okay, well, that's compelling. Now you can see the result of what happened there. You don't have to know, they don't have to explain to you that a struggle happened. You can see it with your eyes. A lot of times these guys are just explaining stuff that you've already seen, or that you already see with your own eyes, and it's not really adding to the story. And it's not making it particularly compelling in how it does things. So I don't know. It's a big missed opportunity. It's a Kickstarter game that I feel like it has not hit its narrative barrier to make it interesting or compelling. And it's a shame because there's a lot of nice set pieces here. It's just not it's not something that you'd really feel fulfilled with playing. So that's my take on that. And then next up is stuff that I've been streaming, and namely No Man's Sky. I've been streaming some more of that. So you can kind of catch me on, Mixer or Caffeine as far as that is concerned. I'll probably be streaming a little bit more of it this week. Maybe 1 or 2 days this week, not all week, because I got to the point where I could get a free freighter, and the game bugged out and didn't give me my free freighter. And now I'm trying to figure out how to get it to give me it, because I downloaded a save game editor just to look at my save game to see if it even showed it on there, and it showed that mission as not being complete. It was like a -1 as progress on it. So it seems to me like I can get it to generate again. I just don't know how to get it to generate again, because I have been warping back and forth, and it's still not like, it still doesn't seem like it wants to give me that freighter goodness again. So I'll see what I could do to try to fix that glitch, because that's annoying. I really want a freighter. I really want to get started in the game. I feel like I've put so much time into the game, and yet I'm still like stuck in first gear, and that's probably the most frustrating thing about it. There's a lot of cool stuff in the game, but just the barrier to getting to that stuff is just annoying. It's not like a fun barrier where it's like, oh, I can, I just got to go do some of this stuff and do some of that stuff. It's more like just a slog most of the times. Like, I mean, freaking just repairing my multi-tool is like thousands of units of chromatic metal, which means I'm just sitting there mining and mining and mining for freaking copper, like ridiculous. It's just, you just get so tired of it after a while. It's just like, ugh, why am I, like, the end goal is going to be kind of worth it, but at the same time, it's just, the mountain you have to climb is just ridiculous at times. But that's my story with No Man's Sky. And then next on the list is Rebel Galaxy. I have been jumping back into that. Rebel Galaxy Outlaw is something that's coming out, I think the first quarter of next year it's slated for. And so before that comes out, and I'm really, really waiting and anticipating for that, because it's like a Wing Commander game at that point. I'm like, ooh, yes, I need this in my life. I thought it would be a good idea if I actually finished Rebel Galaxy, because I've never finished it. And I've actually gotten to the second system in the game, and I'm made quite a lot of progress there. The game is starting to really click. I'm starting to really make some good progress here and there. I still have to do some missions to get a bunch of money and kind of level myself up a little bit, because I'm on the cusp of what I could do as far as the story missions are concerned. They're a little bit too difficult at the moment, but I'm enjoying it, and I really like that game. I really want to finish it. My push right now is to finish Rebel Galaxy. I'll occasionally jump into No Man's Sky. I might also do like Poly Universe a little bit, like do a strategy game like Poly Universe, just to kind of balance out the streams a little bit. But I'm thinking of maybe making Saturday a streaming day too at some point, possibly either Saturday or Sunday. It's hard to do Sunday because it takes me all day just to get this video together. But maybe if I'm trying to take Saturday maybe as the day to get all the stuff together for it, and then Sunday is just the recording day, because it does take a whole day usually to get everything together and all the footage together and all that stuff. But that's my initial plan here for things to go, and that brings us to my outro and what's coming up this week. And I've got a few things on the lineup here that I'm taking a look at. I need to go through my list and find some older games that I've covered once before and recover them, like see what state they're in now. There's a few games that I am probably going to do a video on. I've been hesitant to do a video on MapleStory 2 because it's a game that I kind of sort of understand. I played a little bit of MapleStory 1, but not enough to really fully get on board with it. But it is something that would be relatively simple for me to just kind of drop into and just do a video on, so I might do that. There's a couple other small indie things I'm taking a look at. and I'm not sure what else. It's kind of dry right now. My queue is a little bit dry at the moment as far as things that I want to do. I know I have a lot of stuff in my library from long ago, so I might revisit something or at least look at something that I wanted to look at many moons ago but didn't. So it may be that I have some videos up of games that have been out for a while, just because, you know, it's still a valid thing to do a video on them. It's just maybe not the most timely thing. I know that's not going to exactly get me views and stuff, but because, you know, those games have probably been done to death at this point. But, you know, it'll be something. It's I at least want to do something for the channel. At least have one video out a day if I can. At some point I will do an update video as to what's been going on and why I've been so sort of not laid back, but why I've sort of resorted to just one video a day, and why I'm not really doing as many Let's Plays as I did before. There's reasons for it, both IRL reasons and also just YouTube reasons. So we'll cover that in an update video. I will do an update video this month at some point. I do have some days off coming. It's you know, those of us in the States, Thanksgiving's coming up this month, and I've taken some extra time around it, so I will be probably using a little bit of that time. Hopefully, we'll see. There's some family stuff too that's been kind of distracting me, but maybe not distract. Distract is probably not the right word to use there, but stuff that's been working on my mind. Let's just put it that way. Not good stuff. Not good stuff either. It's been quite worried about things. But yeah, more streams this week. Trying to stream, you know, my Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Hopefully without having to take a day off. Although I might end up taking a day off one of those days just to record more stuff for the YouTubes. We'll see how Monday goes, how much I get to get done recording on Monday. So with that, friends, that will do it for this plan for this week, for the week of November 4th. And I hope that everyone has had a great week leading up to this. I hope everyone has a great week next week, and hopefully I will you know, I gotta figure out these outros at some point. I gotta figure out some common outro here. But thanks everyone for watching on YouTube's or listening on SoundCloud, and I will hopefully see you guys next week.